Hello, I'm Dr. George Day, and this is the course introduction for CJUS 4376, Organized Crime, for East Texas Baptist University's online criminal justice program. And I am Dr. George Day. This is Julius. Julius is a fat cat, and so I thought fat cats would be a great approach to organized crime, since they're all a bunch of fat cats, right? Nah. Okay, anyway. The purpose of this video is just to give you a little introduction. I'm essentially going to do the same thing I would do on campus, which is to go over the syllabus with you, tell you a little bit about the class and the assignments and what's to be expected during the semester. And Julius has no purpose besides looking cute and pestering me. All right, let's see. My office phone number is area code 903-923-2094. You can contact me there anytime during my office hours, which are generally Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in the morning until about 10 o'clock. And then Mondays and Wednesdays in the afternoon after 3, between 3 and 4. On Tuesdays, I'm in the office in the afternoons after 1. And on Thursdays, I'm in the office in the mornings up until about 2 o'clock or so. Being this is an online class, I probably don't expect to see you in the office much, though some of you, if you live locally, you're more than happy to come visit. My office is in Meadows Hall on the ETBU campus. And again, you're welcome to come by and visit whenever you'd like. As far as communication, of course, there's numerous ways to stay in contact with me during the semester. There's messaging through the Moodle portal. There's email, which is kind of my preferred means of communicating with students, just because it leaves a nice little record that we've had whatever conversation we've had. We can always refer back to emails, which give us kind of a record of what we've talked about. I do have a Facebook page, and you can see that on Facebook. On there, I sometimes will post updates about the class. Usually that's the first place I'll mention if I finish grading an exam or something. Usually I might say something on Facebook and say, hey, CJUS 4376 students, your midterm exams have been graded. You can look at it. And I might send messages through Moodle, and I just have lots of different ways I contact people. If you need, go away, Julius. If you need a quick answer to a short question, something that can be answered, say, in a text message, I do have a Google Voice number, which you can use to text me, which is area code 903-354-GDAY, G-D-A-Y. That's a relative. I have found so far that is a fairly convenient and easy way to communicate with students. And generally, you can send me a text pretty much whenever you want. I probably won't. I might answer anywhere between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and I'll usually answer a text within a few minutes, as long as I'm not just right in the middle of something. Generally, as long as I'm not having dinner with the wife, or I'm at piano lessons or something, I'll stop and answer you. And so it's a good way to get a quick answer to things. Email communication, and you see that on the syllabus, and I'm kind of on the first page of the syllabus. I'm just going to kind of follow the syllabus. That is, the email communication really should go through your Tiger Mail or the Moodle, the messaging thing on the portal. That's fine too. Let's see, office hours, we talked about that. The textbook is Mitch Roth's Organized Crime. If you had me for History of the Criminal Justice System last year, you should be familiar with Dr. Roth, since he wrote the textbook for that class too. It's a pretty good book. It's fairly similar to the last Mitch Roth book we used in style, so there's a lot of good stories in here about organized crime. And, in my residential class, which is about halfway through the course on campus, have enjoyed the textbook so far. Let's see, course description. You can read the course description on syllabus for yourself. All that huge paragraph boils down to, we're going to talk about organized crime. We're going to spend maybe half the semester, the first half of the semester, focusing really on American organized crime. And in particular, we're going to spend the first half of the semester talking about the mafia. I think we spent almost all the way till the midterm exam in the residential class talking about the mafia. Right before the midterm, we'll get to talking about other types of American organized crime, in that we'll get to talk about outlaw motorcycle gangs and prison gangs, and other street gangs like the Crips and the Bloods and the Latin Kings, and certainly we'll talk about whether or not those very large nationwide criminal street gangs like the Crips and the Bloods and the Latin Kings, we'll kind of look at, are those really organized crime, or are they something that is a little more than a group of guys getting together and committing crime, but maybe something less than organized crime. And we'll kind of use the Sicilian Mafia as a benchmark for deciding whether or not these groups are organized crime. When we get into talking about the organized crime in Russia and in parts of Africa, we'll also look at those issues of, is this really organized crime, or is this something that is starting to move in the direction of being organized crime, but maybe isn't quite there yet, which is a distinct possibility, particularly with groups like Latin Kings and other American street gangs. Let's see, the course objectives. They're there on the syllabi. We're going to look at what organized crime is. We're going to do an overview of organized crime, particularly groups in the United States. We'll look at laws used to combat organized crime, so we'll talk a little bit about RICO and parts of the Patriot Act that have been used against organized crime. By the way, if you're looking for a term paper topic, I have a couple of students on campus that are writing about the RICO Act, and those term papers are turning into being something fairly easy to find lots of sources on, and they're turning into relatively interesting papers. And this is one of those things with your term paper, and we'll talk about this later, but when it comes to the term paper, since I'm thinking about it right now, so when it comes to term papers, I'm not really worried about getting multiple papers on the same topic. My residential classes, they're running into issues where they're not real sure about what they want to write about, and so if there's just 2 or 3 really good topics that everyone's interested in, go for it. I don't mind getting a couple of papers about RICO, or a couple of papers about comparing organized crime in Russia to the Sicilian mob and that sort of thing. We will look at organized crime. I do want you as an objector to be aware of organized crime in places other than the United States, even though we'll spend half the semester looking at organized crime in America and looking at the Sicilian Mafia and the American version of the Sicilian Mafia, and we'll spend a lot of time on that. But we do want to look at organized crime other places. I have an attendance policy, which is kind of silly in an online class, but it is there. You have to. And I have an attendance policy because I have to have one. But the university says I have to have an attendance policy. They don't seem to realize or care. This is an online course, and an attendance policy is silly. You see, Julius likes to paint me orange. So we'll just take the fur and get it out of the screen. Ha. But there it is. The university policy, you have to attend 75% of all class meetings. And so participation in online discussion is the equivalent of attendance. And so let's participate in at least 75% of all discussions. Keep in mind that the discussions are graded assignments, and so if you're only doing 75% of them, your grade is in trouble anyway. But there it is. Let's see, grading policy, you can see there are only 3 types of graded activity in the course. There are the exams, 2 of them with 100 points each. There's the 200-point term paper, and then the 120 points in discussion forums. And those are just 1 forum every week. and we'll get talking about that. So let's talk about the required coursework. There are the 2 exams. There's one that occurs during week 4, one during week 8, which are the midterms and the finals. Final exam, if you were with me last semester, or Flex 1 for Advanced Criminological Theory, you'll find that the midterm and final for this class is very similar in format and level of difficulty as the Advanced Theory course tests. I will open up the exams on the Friday night before they start. So I try to open that week up early. And so I'll open week 4 up on Friday of week 3. Hopefully, especially if someone reminds me. I know, one of the students had to remind me last week to open up week 8 early. But I try to open up early because I want you to have an entire week to take the exam. And so, you can open that exam and answer, 1 or 2 questions and then close it, and then come back to it later. Just as you're taking the exams, be careful. There are 2 buttons at the bottom of the screen as you're answering questions. One button, says save without submitting, and the other one says submit. If you're not done with the exam, press the button that says save without submitting. Once you hit the button that says submit, you're done. You can't open it up again. You can't look at it anymore. So make sure that you're hitting the right button, that you don't hit that submit button until you're ready to be done with the exam. But keep in mind, you will have during weeks 4 and week 8, you still have discussion assignment to do that week, but you will have the whole week to work on the exam. And so do it a little bit at a time. Because it is an exam you're being given an entire week to do, I have some fairly high expectations to the level of detail that's in your answers. So as you answer exam questions, make sure you're answering questions completely. You're answering every part of a question. Don't look in just one place in the book or in the lecture for an answer. This was a problem we had in the history class, where I asked a question where my intention and the question really called for the students to synthesize information from different parts of the textbook, from different eras in time, and so we had a lot of students do poorly on test questions because they would find what they thought was the answer in the book, write about that without looking somewhere else. I had that with my residential version of the organized crime class already. I just graded their midterms. And on the midterm, there's a question on there having to do with the growth and development of the Sicilian Mafia and the relationship between economic, political, and social conditions in Sicily and the rest of Italy, and the growth and development of the Mafia. And all the students in the class wrote these really nice essays about the formative years of the Mafia, and the ways the Mafia used the economic and political situation at the very beginning. And then every single one of them, except for 1 or 2 students, stopped. And rather than talking also about how the political and economic situation in Sicily after World War II helped expand the power of the Mafia, they just stopped at the end of the turn of the century, the 1900s. Didn't look at other eras in history and how the Sicilian mob manipulated politics and social situation and economies to grow, and so they all didn't do very well on that question. And so what I say is, when you get a question, make sure you're answering it as completely as possible. And you've got a week. Use the week. Don't feel bad. If it feels like if it sounds like I've said these things before, I have. I just said them this morning to the organized crime class, the other one. Okay, enough about the exams. There'll just be the 2 of them. Midterm, final, whole week. Okay, good. The discussion forums. I'm trying something a little different. And if you were in the class before, the discussion forums is something I've really been playing with. We do need to have some sort of give and take between y'all and me and the class, but never been real thrilled about the grading on these things. And so what we're going to do this time is try to, again, make it more like um, classroom, where usually if you're in a classroom setting, the professor brings up a topic, and students kind of talk about things they've read, and they talk about things maybe they knew before, and to enrich everyone's learning. So what I've done is for every week this semester, I've tried to give you a fairly decent list of outside sources, different places you can go and look and read more about that week's material. And so what you end up with, and there are basically three things you need to do each week. Write 250 words about what you learned, something you found interesting in that week's reading from the textbook. 250 words, not a whole lot. It's just kind of I read the textbook, here's what I really found interesting. And tell us a little bit about what you found interesting and why you found it interesting. And then, so you basically have two paragraphs in your post. One paragraph, 250 words. I'm not going to count words, okay? But, just go with it. 250 is kind of a guide. So again, it's 250 words. It's a little comment about you read the book, and this is what you found really interesting and why. And then go to some outside source. Go to one of the provided websites, and the syllabus says 250 word commentary about one of the provided websites for that week. I'm not going to limit you to those. If you find some other reputable source, or say we're on the week we study the Russian mob, and you really went out there, you were writing your term paper on the Russian mob, and as part of writing the term paper, you went out and you bought a book on the Russian mafia, and that week you read it, or you read parts of it, and you want to tell the class, hey, this is what I learned about the Russian mob this week working on my term paper. That would be fine too. Just 250 words. Here's what I found interesting. Here's why I found it interesting. And then respond to at least one other student's commentary about the textbook reading, and at least one other student's commentary about the additional reading. So you're going to have, at a minimum, 3 posts a week. And I guess I'll need to adjust the rubric a little for this. But here's what I'm going to look for. 3 posts a week. One is this is what I learned, this is what I found interesting this week. It's going to be at least 500 words, 250 on the textbook, 250 on what other source you read. Then you'll respond to at least one other student's commentary about the textbook. And then your third minimum post is one other student's commentary about the additional reading. Now that's the minimum. Okay, each week's discussion is worth 15 points. That's 15 points is like an A. An A is excellent, is perfect. An A grade is not the minimum. The minimum will get you a C. A minimum is average. So if you do the minimum required, you're going to get an average grade. Or you might even get above average. If you do the minimum, you might get like a B's worth of points. I don't know what a B would be on a 15-point scale, but you figure it out. If you want the A, you want the full 15 points, you need to participate more. If you see the grading rubric, and do I have it? Yeah, I have the grading rubric and the syllabi, and there's like 3 things I look at. The textbook commentary, and so that's worth 5 points. So, I should really look at the rubric before I tell you all about it. Anyway, okay, good. Textbook commentary, it's 5 points, 1 point, the minimum length, doesn't follow any of the guidelines, that's worth a point. Minimum guidelines, and you can see that, 2 or 3 points. So the only way you're going to get the 4 or 5 points on your textbook commentary is if it says post exceeds the minimum length and follows all the guidelines. The other way you can get the full points is if you meet the minimum and then what you write is really profound, or really, I read it and I go, hey, that's really, I read it and I go, hey, that's really insightful, or that's a, this student really seemed like they really got this. The excellent points, the A grade on these things ought to be something beyond minimum. Don't complain to me later. Well, I did the minimum 3 posts was required, and all I got was points worth of C. Well, if you do the minimum, that's all it's worth. That's average. That's what the average person does, is the minimum. An A is not average. Let's see. The next thing so you get, and then there's 5 points that comes out of additional reading. You can see that again. If you want the A number of points, you want the most number of points possible, you got to do more than the minimum. You got to either write a little more, or even better, you got to write something that I go, hey, this student really got it. This student really said something insightful, something to make me stand up and go, hey, wow, a student really did something good. And then responses, you can see the grade there. Again, if you're just doing the minimum, you're going to get run-of-the-mill grade. You want the full number of points. You want the A points, you got to do something worth an A. And the reality is, these discussion points ought to be easy points. Because what it comes down to is, you write a little more than the minimum, you write something halfway insightful, and you participate fairly regularly, it's easy points. The big thing that really cost people last semester on points was they were waiting until Saturday or Sunday night to start posting. One, that's not fair to everyone else in the class, because if part of what you're required to do is respond to other people's posts, and you're waiting until Sunday night or Saturday night to do your initial post, then you're cheating everyone else in the class, because then they don't have an opportunity to respond to what you said. And if you're waiting until Saturday and Sunday night, it's going to cost you points. I know you all are busy, you got lives. It doesn't take but a few minutes on Wednesday night to get that first post in. You spend the first half of your week, you get your reading done, and do your little extra source, and by Wednesday or Thursday night, you're making your first post. You're waiting until Friday, Saturday night, it's going to cost you points. Don't wait. Get it done. Enough about that. Be sure, ask me questions. I know I just went rambling for about 10 minutes. And so if you've got questions about that particular ramble, be sure to ask. Don't guess. Don't go, well, I think Dr. Day meant. Don't do that. If you're not sure, and you're playing, I'm not really sure what Dr. Day meant, but I think, don't do that. Ask. I'd rather answer the question now than listen to the complaints later. Let's see, term paper, 15 to 20 pages. Now, let me say something about the length. The students go, 20-page paper, oh my God, that's terrible, it's long. I can't write a 20-page paper. Yeah, right. The 20 is the maximum. What I expect is a bunch of 15 to 16-page papers. That's perfectly okay. Don't feel pressured to write a 20-page paper. I put an upper limit on these things. Basically what I'm doing is assigning a 15-page paper and telling the overachievers in the class, don't write more than 20 pages. Because there are some of you, and this is kind of a pot calling the kettle black thing, because I was one of them when I was an undergraduate student, who, if there wasn't an upper level, would write a 25, 30-page paper. I already get complaints about not getting papers back to students in a timely manner. Don't write. So I put an upper page limit on papers, not to say this is what I really want. That's my way of saying don't write more than this. Don't write less than 15. Don't write more than 20. 15-page paper is what I'm looking for. The space between the 15 and the 20, is the leeway for you overachievers that if I didn't put a limit on you would send me 30-page papers. And yes, there are some of you out there, you won't admit it, but you're out there. Let's see, suggestions on any topic relevant to the course. Something, if you can tie it to organized crime somehow, it's an appropriate topic for the course. And this first week, email me your idea, what you think you might want to write about. Before you email me hey, I want to write about this, go look and make sure you got some sources, because that's the first question I'm going to ask you. If I look at it and it goes, I don't know about that topic, and the first thing I'm going to email you back is, hey, so-and-so, have you looked to see if you've got enough sources to write this thing? Because that's a key. If you look at the next paragraph in the syllabus, it says papers will utilize a minimum of 30 academic sources. That's also easier than it looks. But suggestions for paper topics in the syllabus, you could write a detailed history or analysis of a single organized crime group. So if you can find enough sources to write 15 pages about the Outlaw Motorcycle Club, or the Bonanno family, or the Triads, go for it. That's certainly a choice. You could write a comparative analysis. You could take two distinctly different organized crime groups and do a compare-contrast. Where you could write part of the paper, okay, here's a history of this group, here's a history of these guys, and here's similarities and differences, and kind of an analysis of them. You could do something like if you could find, maybe you do a compare and contrast of the mafia type organized crime with outlaw motorcycle clubs. Or you could look at the role organized crime groups play in terrorism. There's lots of different ideas when you start thinking about it. You could also write about a type of crime associated with organized crime. I have several students in my on-campus class writing about drug trafficking. I have at least one that's writing about human trafficking. And so there's that. You could write about government responses to organized crime. I have at least one really what is shaping out to be a fairly good paper about RICO, which is turning into a fairly decent paper. And then, if you're having trouble with sources, give me a call. You've got my phone number in my office. Call me during my office hours sometime, and we can talk. If we need to, if you're at work, because you're online. So if you're working during the day and you don't have the opportunity to call me during the day, you can always email and say, hey, I want to talk to you. I'd like to set an appointment, talk to you about my term paper. Can we have a telephone conference on such and such an evening? And I live across, if I could, if it was 2 to 1 dark, I could point to this camera out the window, and you can see I live across the street from campus. And so it doesn't take very much for me, say you need to talk to me at 7 or 8 o'clock on a Thursday night. It's not that big a deal for me to go wander across the street and have you call me in my office in the evening, and we can sit down and talk, and I can walk you through finding some sources. I was helping a student a few weeks ago look for sources on his paper on the Mexican drug cartels, and actually found a source that had government reports that were partially redacted. And the student that just made his day, got him all excited about his paper, and I have to admit I thought it was kind of neat too, is we had these government reports about some of the Mexican cartels that were partially redacted, which was, I guess we're nerds or whatever, but that was just kind of really cool. So lots of options out there. So 30 academic sources. Y'all know what academic sources are by now. Scholarly journals, government-funded websites, anything with a .gov. One of the big exceptions to the .gov only rule is the United Nations website, which is not a .gov. I can't remember what their extension is. I think it might be a .org. But the United Nations website, for a lot of topics that you're going to look at, The United Nations their website has all sorts of good information and lots of good links. So, stuff that's on the UN website or links that you get to from the United Nations website are certainly acceptable. And, the usual rule, papers are in APA format. You don't need to do an abstract. Should reflect college level writing skills, no spelling errors, minimal grammatical errors. I'm not requiring a draft, though I recommend one. In fact, I've just recently made acquaintance with an English education major on campus who is an excellent proofreader. And she has volunteered to proofread papers for students. She won't correct your paper for you, but she proofreads like I do. I was very excited to find this person, and she's been very helpful to several of my students already in proofreading their papers. So there are resources for you, but you've got to take advantage of those things. Then you see my policy on the syllabus about late papers. I don't take them. Of course, there's also exceptions to every rule, and the exceptions are there. There is the academic integrity policy. Don't do this. Don't cheat. Don't plagiarize. Don't cut and paste from the internet. Don't buy papers. An issue that came up last semester, or actually this semester, but on a different class, was an issue of taking a paper that a student took a paper that he wrote for a different class a couple of years ago and resubmitted it for a current class. It's not bad to use the same topic in one class from another one that you've used before. The general rule of thumb, I know this is something a lot of, that doesn't come up very often, doesn't get talked about. If you wanted to write a paper, say, you wrote a paper a year or so ago on a topic, and now you're in another class where that top paper would fit, you can't just resubmit that paper again to another class. You can keep the topic, but you've got to write a new paper. And it is always a good idea to ask your professor's permission first. Up until recently, I kind of thought students could figure that one out on their own, and I figured wrong. Just must be every class you take, you must have a unique paper for it. See, there's the rules of plagiarism. I think all of you have been with me long enough. You've been college students long enough to know what plagiarism is. Please read that section of the syllabus and ask questions if you do not know. This is another one of those things where don't assume you know what I mean. Ask if you're not sure. There's the academic and course withdrawal policy. Past the 75% mark on a course, you can't withdraw anymore. There's the disabled students policy that usually doesn't come up in the online classes, but it's there. And then finally, there's the class schedule. The first week, we'll talk about just defining and explaining organized crime. Week 2, we'll talk about the mafia. Week 3, we talk about the roots of organized crime and vice prohibition. Essentially, we're going to keep talking about the mafia. Sorry, it's the way it works out. We pretty much spent a couple of weeks talking about the mafia. Though in week 3, we start moving away from the mafia and start talking about other organized crime groups in the United States. A little bit about the Irish mob. We talk about Capone's outfit. We talk about some other groups just besides, primarily, the families out of New York. Let's see, week 4 is talk about the businesses of organized crime. When we start talking about homegrown organized crime, which is outlaw motorcycle gangs and things like that. It is not until after the midterm that we get out of the United States, and then we finish, in the last part of the semester, we do Asian, Russian, European crime, week 5, African crime in week 6, When we talk about terrorism and its relationship to organized crime and government responses in week 7. And then I have to peek here. What's week 8 about? Let's see. Investigating and responding to organized crime and terrorism. Sorry. My copy of the syllabus is on the computer monitor that my camera is leaning on. And so that's the syllabus for the course. And I think I've pretty much covered all the other topics. I'm going to get this. This will be available to you all semester. And so probably, and I usually, what's been my real pattern is I usually will get lecture video posted either on Monday or Tuesday. And so you get to see my pretty fat face once a week. But that's it. If you have any questions about syllabus, about course material, about my expectations, please let me know through phone, message, whatever. This week is very important for you to pick a topic for your paper. Make sure there's enough sources out there for you to write about whatever it is you want to write about, and to talk to me so I can tell you, hey, this is a good topic. Hey, you might want to think about going this other direction. But it's vital that you get started now. 15-page paper isn't that long, but if you're not accustomed to writing a paper that length, waiting till the week gets due is a really bad idea. Ideally, you want to be done week 5 or so, and so that you can send me a draft and give me an opportunity to look at it and get it back to you. That would be your big goal. And without having weekly exams, you have time to work on your term paper a little each week. So that's that for organized crime. I will see you throughout the semester. I look forward to maybe talking to you, helping you explore the wonderful world of the Sicilian mob. And just as a parting comment, I'm going to now apologize for all the times I butcher the pronunciation of the names of many of these people, because as I've learned in the first half of the class on campus, one of the things I've learned is my Italian pronunciation is rather poor. So goodbye for now.